Hi guys, Nightshift10000 back again with a new video after a long stint, and I do mean a long one. A lot of personal drama and a lot of other things that I'm not going to go into here. God, I've been gone for a long time. It almost feels like this.
Plastic. Manufactured products. Oh God! No! I slept too long!
But that's all in the past. I'm back now, and we've got a new video coming up. So let's see what I've got on the docket today, shall we? Oh no, seriously? Seriously? One from Lauren Southern? Well, the only thing we can do is trudge through it. Let's go, guys. As you may all remember, or not, I don't know, Lauren Southern, everyone's favorite Canadian libertarian candidate turned Christian moralist, and more or less everyone's favorite blonde political commentator. No, not her. No, not her either. No, hold on. No, her. Yes, her. Leave it there. Her. Yes, leave it on that one. Anyway, everyone's favorite blonde political commentator from a few years ago came back to YouTube after years on hiatus and started making videos again and confusing people with her message and videos in general. I mean, it's not like these attractive blonde conservative political commentators blend together or anything. I mean, no. What would make you think that? But a few days ago, she made another very confusing video on what she likes to call capitalism and its problems, and I'm going to be having a go at that now. So, yeah, buckle the fuck up, motherfuckers. This is going to get loud.
First of all, I would like to give a warm welcome to all of the people who are here for the first 10 seconds of the video to leave a dislike and an angry response calling me a communist before even watching it. And goodbye. All right, now that that's out of the way, comrades, working men and working women, collective farmers, brothers and sisters, guerrillas, we must fight for the socialist revolution. Fight to the end until the complete victory of the proletariat and the overthrow of the international bourgeoisie. Long live the worldwide social... Seriously, people.
Lauren, honey, cut the crap and get on with it.
You do not have to join the Red Army to recognize that capitalism has some problems. You can even love it and realize this.
Yes, you are correct, Lauren. Nobody, especially anarcho-capitalists like myself, have ever or will ever claim that capitalism is a perfect economic system. We do not claim that capitalism is utopian or perfect. We just claim that capitalism is the best economic system that humanity has devised.
But the truth is, one could create the greatest system in the universe, but as soon as you insert humans, said system will have issues.
Again, you're correct, Lauren. The same could be said of capitalism or Christianity or any other religion out there, to be honest. Humans are imperfect. We are not going to execute things perfectly. And once corruption hits us, shit's going to hit the fan. So yes, that could be said for just about anything out there. What's your point?
Check out the Garden of Eden. We suck.
Yes, that is if you accept the Garden of Eden as fact and not fiction, which most of us do accept that it's fiction. However, yes, there's a lot of real history out there to prove that point as well. So, yeah, I'm with you on that, Lauren. But again, I must ask, what does this have to do with capitalism?
Especially when we were given the freedom to suck.
Oh, so slavery, abject subjugation, and Christian fascism is the answer to the problem. Wait, no? Well, then what is?
I'm not sure when exactly this Republican worship of capitalism began.
Let me answer that for you, Lauren. There is no Republican worship of capitalism. Not really. Republicans and conservatives are the ones calling for the most regulations and limitations on capitalist free market economics, and have been doing so since time immemorial.
But it is a problem, and it needs to stop. Capitalism is just a system of economics. It is not a god, it's not a moral system.
Yes.
Wow, I'm going to be spamming that meme a lot here, aren't I? Even still, I can't imagine anything that is more moral than having individuals make their own decisions over their own lives, so there is that.
And it's not going to save us. And in fact, in its current highly toxic form, has arguably been the downfall of both traditionalism and conservatism in many ways.
Yes.
Correct, Lauren. In its current form, corporatism has cost us much and is threatening much even now.
And coincidentally is the most powerful weapon currently used by radical socialist activists who seemingly have given up the class war in favor of winning the culture war hand in hand with big corporations.
Big corporations are not genuinely capitalist and never will be.
So let's jump right into it and go through the three main problems I have here and why.
So, the first thing, and I've made notes, by the way. I've made notes. This is how invested I am in this.
1. The amount of power corporations have is too damn high.
Yes.
I have a lot in common with libertarians. I ran for the Libertarian Party. I generally want to be left alone and not have the foot of the state constantly on my throat.
Unless it's in the name of Jesus and the church, right?
However, where I tend to part ways with my libertarian friends is I think there are significantly more threats to our freedoms than just the state, such as the many violent, non-government authoritarian criminals and foreign terrorist groups that exist.
Oh, do you mean terrorist regimes like the ones the United States government and the state have created? Is that what you're talking about right now? Well, I'm sure if we just make another group to fight those terrorists, it'll all work out in the... Oh, yeah. Well, shit. That never goes well, does it? Like it or not, the state is to blame for all of them in one way or another. Yes, the greatest threat to our freedoms is indeed the state.
All people I don't particularly want entering my country or running around freely. Libertarians will often disagree with me and respond by saying, sure, Lauren, violent people exist, but they are just not as big a threat as the all-powerful state is to our freedoms. Therefore, no matter the potential benefits of the state in stopping or reducing other evils, it must be abolished or at least severely reduced.
The ring is altogether evil. It is a gift to the foes of Mordor. Why not use this ring? Long has my father, the steward of Gondor, kept the forces of Mordor at bay. By the blood of our people are your lands kept safe. Give Gondor the weapon of the enemy. Let us use it against him.
You cannot wield it. None of us can. The One Ring answers to Sauron alone. It has no other master.
Lauren, you can't use the state to fix the state's mistakes. That's not how it works.
Because they are the bigger problem, which fair enough. Deal with the greatest threat to freedoms first. The only problem here, though, is that the government is no longer the 800-pound gorilla. It's more like an organ grinder's monkey dancing to corporate music.
Which makes it even more dangerous if you want the truth, Lauren. The government has become the power broker to these corporations that it keeps in charge and in control. Without the government, these corporations wouldn't have the power that they have now. They wouldn't even exist as corporations. They would just be regular companies. And in a genuine free market, they wouldn't last 2 weeks pulling the shit they're pulling now.
Western governments are largely controlled by corporate lobbying pressure, campaign donations, and now even censorship of politicians we once would have thought were more powerful than said corporations. And the worst part about the corporations having this power is we didn't elect them.
Well, actually, and unfortunately, Lauren, we kind of did elect them. When the people elected politicians who were going to be swayed and ultimately corrupted by corporate lobbyists. Government is always at the center of it, no matter how much you want to deny that.
And no, we didn't vote for them with our dollar either. I'm sure a lot of us would much rather go to our local shops and hire our neighbors for jobs over some faceless, nameless corporation.
Yes.
But unfortunately, it's becoming near impossible to compete with global monopolies utilizing slave labor to drive down prices while we have to adhere to reasonable local labor laws. Not to mention all of the government grants, tax cuts, and favoritism for big business elites. It is simply not possible to compete, which is tragic for hardworking small businesses and medium businesses, which I, and I'm sure many of you, really support.
Again, you are correct, Lauren, but the thing you're falling down on is the state is ultimately at the center of all this. Its enormous power over the private sector is what's gumming things up.
Now, I know what you're thinking. I know what you are all thinking. Lauren, this is not real capitalism you are talking about. This is crony capitalism. And you'd be absolutely right. But here's the kicker. Real capitalism has never been tried.
Lauren, all throughout history, we have seen examples of real free market capitalism. People buying, selling, and trading has existed all throughout history from the Stone Age through the different ages. Though diminished by states, real capitalism has existed, persevered, and even toppled states. In our current era, we also have examples of true free market capitalism. They are called the black market, the gray market, Silk Road, and the deep web. They are not only prospering without government controls and regulations, they are gradually diminishing the state itself.
Just like how real communism has never been tried. Both of these theories and systems on a large scale are ahistorical constructs. We have never lived in a world where millions of people have had to share with each other the way a family does. And we have never lived in a world where everyone buys and sells from each other with no restrictions or aggression from anyone else.
Even if that was true, which it's not, wouldn't it be about time to try something like that?
So if we want to deal with reality, what we have to examine is how capitalism has actually worked in history. And to my libertarians, a little side note, if you need to mentally put the word crony in front of capitalism for the rest of this talk to get through it, that's perfectly fine. Like I said, you're not wrong, but I'm speaking to the system in place today that Republicans often defend as capitalism. And history tells us that this system can absolutely lead to brutal, authoritarian, and freedom-threatening results.
Yes.
As it is quickly doing so today. Corporations have the power to politically manipulate populations, to deny us our speech, and even to control our thoughts and feelings through algorithms. That is terrifying. And despite this, you still have Republicans out here defending it as just a private company. And another peep you may hear from them in defense of our corporate overlords is, well, at least they can't throw you in jail. At least they won't put you against a firing wall or start wars.
Which is untrue. Of course they can through government manipulation. Oh, and for anyone who thinks I'm blowing smoke with this statement, look up regulatory capture really quickly. Go right ahead.
Yeah, sorry. That just doesn't quite line up with history either. I could do a whole video on private war profiteering. And massive companies and corporations like the Dutch East India Company not only kept and sold slaves, but had private militaries larger than entire countries' militaries, and eventually became so powerful they could invade and become the acting government in areas.
Wait a minute, Lauren. That literally means that they have ceased to be a company or corporation, and that they have literally become themselves a state.
In which they had business interests. To pretend that if we just abolished the government, none of these corporations would ever even think to oppress us, to fill that power vacuum and take away our liberties, is madness.
Well, Lauren, as I've said before, if the government were abolished, corporations would actually cease to exist, become large companies, and would lose all of their power, so there is that.
In fact, there is already legislation being proposed to allow Nevada tech companies to form their own governments and cities.
Oh, I know I'm going to sound like a broken record, but again, whose fault is that, Lauren?
So people, if you are skeptical of and you don't like big government, you really should be just as worried about big corporations, because they don't want to uphold systems which made them wealthy, as those very systems may allow for their replacement and failure. And thus, they want to become your government and eliminate competition and question. And I fear that these mega corporations are getting very close to that. So instead of daddy government on our throats, we'll just have, Google Soldiers TM putting us up against firing walls for illegally downloading Gab or Parler to their devices and sharing our Netflix account with more than 10 friends. But let's move on. Because this second one is a far more important point, and that is capitalism's destruction of community and culture.
Oh God, here we go. All aboard the Jesus train, everyone.
I often see many on the right lamenting the loss of old traditional architecture, community, family, and art, and yet at the same time proposing capitalism as a solution. It's not.
Nor did capitalism ever claim to be the solution to these problems. Why should it be?
Not even a little bit. Capitalism has no incentive to preserve our culture or communities.
Nor should capitalism have to, Lauren. These things that you're bringing up are not matters of the economic, they are matters of the philosophical. They do not concern capitalism in the very least.
And in fact, I'd argue, has negatively impacted families. I think where this confusion comes in is some people observe that Marxism works in opposition to capitalism and to deconstruct the nuclear family, and assume, therefore, capitalism must be working to oppose Marxism and to support the family. But capitalism is not Marxism's counter. It came about before Marxism and is therefore indifferent to it. It's simply an alternate system. And while that system can certainly bolster some people's family lives and wealth and material goods, capitalism only moderates for the markets and not for the souls and well-being of its workers.
Then what alternative system do you suggest, Lauren? Really, I'm all ears here. No, we're not jumping on that train yet. Let's just see what she has to say.
There is a reason defenders of capitalism talk about how people can't eat in communist societies, because capitalism is really, really good at creating surpluses of goods for physical needs. But does it serve, your safety needs? Not really. Your financial security can be wiped away any minute by the stock market. Does it serve needs relating to love and belonging?
Well, it depends. Some people would consider a Tinder date that, but I guess it varies from individual to individual, as it should.
No, because having a wife or a husband, and definitely kids, is a drain on your productivity and resources.
Says who? No, seriously, Lauren, I want to see numbers on this one.
And anyway, in this culture, apparently it's irrational to limit yourself to just one person. Might as well just use Tinder and count yourself lucky to live in a free society, you prude.
If that's what individuals want to do, who are you to stop them, and what authority do you wield? Oh, of course, the authority of God Almighty. Got it.
Does it serve needs related to esteem? Does anyone feel esteemed in an assembly line or in a job where their boss treats them like they should be grateful the company has room in the budget for free coffee?
Assembly lines and thankless working class jobs are being replaced quickly by industrial automation. So these people can go into job positions that require more intelligence and initiative from individuals, or they can even start their own businesses, all of which bolsters empowerment and esteem in individuals. And all of these things I've mentioned are made possible by capitalism.
Does it serve needs relating to self-actualization? I don't know. You try self-actualizing in a gig economy or in a world where you can lose your job the instant you self-actualize in a way that Twitter doesn't like.
No, you're right, Lauren. These things don't help self-actualization in people. Do you want to know what does? Again, starting your own business is one way to help self-actualization in human beings. And this is something that is, again, becoming even harder under corporatization and the state.
Also, on a side note, Marxism may have told women that being wives and mothers was shameful, but it was capitalism that broadcast that message so that all of those women would enter the workforce and drive down the wages of their husbands and sons.
Ooh, and now we're railing for traditional gender roles, something I'm not completely against myself, but again, I believe it should be left up to the discretion of the individual what they want to do.
Seriously, can we really say that it's all just government systems that have ruined our happiness?
Yes.
Or perhaps could some of us admit our work life, addiction to media, obsession with pursuing the next shiny product, the constant demands that we buy things to look a certain way, feel a certain way, watch this, buy that, play that, drink this, eat that? Could it perhaps be this mass consumerism and work-life imbalance that has also ripped us from our family, community, and loved ones, and ourselves?
Okay, I do potentially agree with you on this one, Lauren, but again, it should be left up to the discretion of the individuals. It should be what they want. Perhaps they want to make that their life's purpose. Who are you to say they can't?
In many ways as well. What Hannah Arendt called the vita activa, a state where we must always be busy, never present, and always consuming. It's just soul-destroying. And even if we move on to other factors leading to cultural decay, such as mass immigration with no assimilation, that too has largely been pushed and supported by corporations looking for cheap labor.
Why shouldn't they? Why shouldn't any business really? Without the government and the massive welfare state, mass immigration actually ceases to be a problem.
As for old architecture, the utility of a building being nice relative to its price just doesn't add up. And don't tell me there's not a demand for beautiful buildings when people are flying halfway across the world just to take pictures with them. The problem is that the demand clearly doesn't lead to enough profit.
No, it does. Have you ever heard of, tourism? Well, apparently you have because you just mentioned it and obviously just forgot it a second later.
Visual joy of the citizenry in daily life is not a business.
Tell that to the Amish.
This is in large part why the left have won the culture war. They didn't care that their arts degrees weren't particularly profitable, they just wanted to create art. And sure, I'm conceding ground to progressives in some regard, but I'm also not going to sit here and pretend that you can eat an art degree or that it was the arts that doubled our average lifespan. That was absolutely innovation pushed by commercial interests and capitalism. But the question still arises. What is the point of a long lifespan if increasingly people aren't wanting to live said life?
It's amazing how easily I can spin this around to make an argument for assisted suicide and how the state illegalizes that because of people like Lauren. And I kid you not, under certain circumstances, you can be arrested for leaving a hospital or turning down their services. Your life isn't in your own hands because of the state.
Ultimately, we cannot understate how consumerism makes surviving insultingly easy, but we must also acknowledge it makes living insultingly hard. Now, the last one here, number 3. Capitalism is indifferent to morality.
Again, I would agree, as it should be. But also, again, I would argue that the most moral thing out there is having individuals make their own decisions for their own lives. Just putting that on the table again, because we apparently have to say that again.
Capitalism is not a conservative view of the world. It's not a political view at all, really. It's simply a tool which sways towards the highest bidder.
Well, no, not really. It's just an economic system of buying, selling, and trading that doesn't necessarily sway one way or the other.
If you live in a culture that is deeply sickened, the products that are both created and sold will sicken with it. They won't save it. They won't pull you out of your moral darkness. Capitalism just amplifies what we as humans desire in our hearts, which is why it has done very wonderful things worthy of praise. But if you are a nation that has lost morality, if you are a nation that has lost God, capitalism just becomes the devil's playground.
You're assuming these nations want to follow your God and aren't secular, as most nations and societies are and should be. What that means is there needs to be tolerance of other ways and cultures. Something I know Christians don't have the best track record on.
Go ahead, ignore your family and friends so you can work. To fund your alcoholism, spend all night feeding your porn addiction and buying your way past a girl's modesty. Pay for followers to feed your narcissism, why don't you? And go ahead, consume the cheapest product provided by men and women only held to their desks by the factory suicide nets, preventing them from jumping to their own death.
Yes, all of these things you've mentioned can be seen as negatives, but again, who are you to say these individuals can't do these things? If you restrict people in the name of your God, you're no better than the European theocratic tyrants of the medieval era.
I'm sorry, but there is a reason that even the most stringent conservatives like Sir Roger Scruton often describe themselves as reluctant capitalists. Because modern capitalism is a deeply sick system. And progressives are not wrong to call that out. If you can't acknowledge where your opponents are correct, you cannot argue with them on where they are wrong. You can't even begin to explain to them that This is crony capitalism. You can't even begin to argue that it's a user issue and application rather than the system itself, without acknowledging that there is an issue in the first place. Truth is not found in political absolutes. It's not found in platitudes either. As one of my most respected mentors and professor, Ron Dart, always reminds me, truth is often found in the tension. That is to say, not absolutes, nor even the center, but constantly questioning and challenging ourselves and our beliefs.
This, as far as I'm concerned, is correct, and I have found myself questioning my beliefs many times, and every single time I've come back to the conclusion that capitalism, free market capitalism, is the best economic system that humans have devised. So, there you go.
And as I mentioned at the start of this video, some of you may be itching to call me a socialist for publishing this, but consider that you're watching this video on YouTube. Literally any minute, with no warning, YouTube could alter its terms of service to include a provision that lets them ban this video, and then do it. How does this make them any better than countries who censor political dissidents? My banning from the UK cut me off from speaking face-to-face with 68 million people, potentially, and even if I had a primetime slot at the BBC and attracted the entire viewership of the UK, I still wouldn't get a fraction of the influence and reach that's available on YouTube.
YouTube is a private company that makes its own rules. The upside to this is it's not the only social media provider, and it does have rising competition that don't make the same rules for the sake of competition. Conversely, in a socialist country that controls such media, you could have something like StateTube, or a single state-controlled social media provider with no competition allowed. Yeah. Do you see, in this case, how capitalism becomes the solution rather than the problem?
YouTube gets 8.6 billion monthly visits worldwide, literally more engagement than there are people on planet Earth. Their daily views are in the billions, and YouTube can cut you off from that audience anytime it likes, for any reason, with no warning or explanation. And because of the power of its lobbying, there is currently no chance to fix that problem.
Again, the solution to this is competition. If you don't like YouTube's rules and regulations, switch to a competitor like BitTubers or BitChute. Yeah, the beauty of capitalism always seems to shine through.
And if you complain about that massive, unaccountable, super governmental power over worldwide speech, you get accused of supporting literal centralized planning of all resources in society by some Republicans, as if there is no middle ground between, hey, I think corporations have gone a bit far, and submitting yourself to Big Brother. Which is why I say this to any in my audience currently itching to call me a socialist. You keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means.
Pink fluffy unicorns dancing on rainbows. Pink fluffy unicorns dancing on rainbows. Pink fluffy unicorns dancing on rainbows.
Now, do I have a solution for this? Great question.
Oh, here it comes, everyone. Here it is, the big climactic conclusion. What is Lauren's huge, successful alternative going to be? Let's hear it. Let's get ready!
No, I got nothing. Sorry, guys.
What?
But to be fair, this is probably why we've let things get so whack.
No, wait. No, she can't be serious. She cannot be serious right now. She just went through all of that time and effort making this video, and she was just messing with us? She didn't have anything in conclusion. No deep-founded philosophy. No nothing? Oh, okay. Oh, God. I am done at this point. I am done. Okay, no. You want to know what? No. I'm not done. I'm not actually finished at this point. I do have a few closing words for Lauren and anyone who's out there that is watching this right now. That was hard to get through, but at least Lauren makes the distinction between crony capitalism and free market capitalism. The problem is she minimalizes the state's blame for what's happening, seemingly in favor of Christian moralism that will inevitably lead to religious fundamentalism. As the late, great Murray Rothbard said, the state is, and always has been, the great single enemy of the human race, its liberty, happiness, and progress. Whether Lauren, or anyone else for that matter, wants to admit it or not, the state is at the center of the madness we are all experiencing right now, and will always be at the center of the madness and human misery. And remember, folks, religious fundamentalism gave us the Dark Ages. Capitalism, even in its perverted form, crony capitalism, gave us a technological golden age that we are experiencing now in our modern era. I mean, just think about what free market capitalism could do for us. When it comes down to it, the heart of the matter is this. Capitalism isn't the enemy. The state is the enemy. Corporatism, terrorism, and immorality are just symptoms of the disease, a cancer called the state that we must remove if we are to be well. Yep. As for this video, I am finished. I am done with Lauren Southern, and I am done with this. I'm Nightshift10000, and I'm out, folks.
There's too many men, too many people making too many problems, and there's not much love to go around. Can't you see this is a land of confusion? This is the world we live in, and these are the hands we're given. Use them and let's start trying to make it a place worth living in. Superman, where are you now? When everything's gone wrong somehow. The men of steel, these men of power, are losing control by the hour. And this is the time, this is a place that we left for the future. But there's not much love to go around. Tell me why this is a land of confusion. This is the world we live in, and these are the hands we're given.
Yes.